Have you ever thought you knew someone so well, only to find out you didn't know them at all? That's the story of my life. Well, the life I had before everything crumbled right in front of me. 2 weeks before my wedding, my fiancée, Allison, went on her bachelorette trip. I wasn't worried about it. Not at first. Her 3 best friends had booked a 5-day getaway to Miami. They rented out this insane oceanfront suite at one of the most luxurious hotels. Allison was ecstatic when she told me the details. Baby, we'll just relax, have spa days, sip cocktails by the pool. You know, girl stuff, she had said with that sweet smile of hers. God, how I loved that smile. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? We'd been together for 4 years. I'd proposed to her on the same beach where we'd had our first date. We'd spent countless nights planning every detail of the wedding. Everything about us felt solid, unbreakable. But after the trip, something changed. Allison came back different. Not in a drastic way, but enough that I noticed. She was distracted, zoning out during conversations. She didn't greet me with the same enthusiasm as usual. I tried brushing it off. Maybe she was just exhausted from the trip. Maybe it was pre-wedding jitters. "You okay, babe?" I asked her one night after dinner. "Yeah, of course. Just tired." "You're overthinking again," she replied, forcing a chuckle. I wanted to believe her, but something gnawed at the back of my mind. Still, I ignored it. I mean, we were 2 days away from getting married. Stress could do weird things to people, right? Then came the rehearsal dinner. That's where everything went to hell. The event was at a cozy venue near the lake, with strings of fairy lights and a live jazz band playing softly in the background. Our closest friends and family were all there, including some old college buddies of mine. Allison had never met most of them, and I was excited for her to finally meet my extended circle. Everyone seemed to be having a great time, and as the evening progressed, someone suggested we play a party game. Never have I ever. You've probably played it at some point. One person says something they've never done, and anyone who has done it has to drink. Simple, fun, harmless, or so I thought. At first, the questions were lighthearted. Never have I ever gone skinny dipping. Never have I ever failed a test in college. Laughter echoed around the room as people took their drinks. Then, my friend Megan, who's known for her no-filter personality, decided to spice things up. She smirked and raised her glass. Never have I ever kissed someone else while in a relationship. A few people laughed nervously and took sips, but what caught my attention was Allison. She froze. Her eyes darted around the room, and for a split second I saw panic flash across her face. Allie, why aren't you drinking?" Megan asked, raising an eyebrow. I don't... I mean... Allison stammered, her face turning pale. The room went quiet. Everyone's eyes were on her now. My stomach dropped. "I saw the pictures," Megan added casually. "Looked like you had a real fun time in Miami?" "What the hell are you talking about?" I demanded, my voice sharper than I intended. Megan pulled out her phone, scrolled for a moment, and then held it up for everyone to see. There it was. A picture of Allison, laughing under the neon lights of a club, her lips locked with some tall, broad-shouldered stranger. The air felt like it had been sucked out of the room. My ears started ringing. "Allison," I said slowly, trying to keep my composure. "Is this real?" She didn't answer. Her eyes were wide, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. "Answer me!" I snapped, my voice cracking. It's not what it looks like," she finally blurted out. "Oh, so you didn't kiss some random guy while you were supposed to be celebrating our upcoming wedding? It was just a stupid moment, okay? We were drunk, and it didn't mean anything," she pleaded. "Didn't mean anything?" I repeated, my voice filled with disbelief. "Do you have any idea how insane that sounds? 2 days before our wedding? And this is how I find out?" "Allison, you owe him an explanation," my brother chimed in, crossing his arms. The room was dead silent, everyone waiting for her to respond, but there was no explanation, just excuses. She kept saying it was a mistake, that it was the alcohol, that it didn't matter. But it mattered to me. It mattered a lot. I could feel the walls closing in on me. The humiliation of having this play out in front of all my friends and family. I looked around the room. My mother was shaking her head in disappointment. My father looked like he wanted to say something, but held back. Megan looked smug, clearly enjoying the drama she'd just unleashed. And me? I was standing there, shattered, in front of everyone I cared about. I stormed out of the venue, my mind racing. I needed air. I needed space to think. What the hell was I supposed to do now? Could I really go through with the wedding after this? My heart felt like it had been ripped out and stomped on, and I wasn't sure if I could ever trust Allison again. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see my best man, Jake. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Dude, you don't have to decide right now," he said softly. "But whatever you do, we've got your back." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I had 2 days to figure out my next move. 2 days to decide if I could forgive the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, or if I'd walk away from it all. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, the clock on the nightstand blinking 3:24 a.m. My phone was buzzing nonstop. Messages from my parents, my friends, even Allison. I didn't read any of them. What could she possibly say that would make this better? That it was a small mistake? Something to brush under the rug? I stared at the engagement ring sitting on the dresser. Just days ago, it had felt like the most important object in my life. Now it felt like a curse. I picked it up and rolled it between my fingers, the cool metal grounding me, keeping me from spiraling further. By 7 a.m., I knew what I had to do. I drove to Allison's apartment without texting her first. I wasn't interested in carefully planned excuses or rehearsed apologies. I wanted raw honesty, if she could even give me that. I knocked on her door, and it didn't take long for her to answer. She was still in her pajamas, her hair a mess, eyes swollen like she'd been crying all night. Good. At least I wasn't the only one suffering. "Can we talk?" I said, my voice flat. She nodded silently and stepped aside to let me in. The air inside felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in on me. Memories of the countless nights I'd spent here flashed through my mind. Movie nights on the couch, lazy Sunday mornings in bed, take-out dinners on the floor when we were too tired to set the table. It all felt tainted now. We sat on opposite ends of the couch. She fiddled with the sleeve of her hoodie, avoiding eye contact. I didn't speak right away. I wanted her to sit in the silence, to feel the weight of what she'd done. Finally, she broke. "I'm so sorry, Jake." Her voice cracked and tears welled up in her eyes. "Yeah, you said that last night," I replied coldly. "I'm not here for more apologies. I want the truth." "It was just a kiss," she whispered, barely audible. I leaned forward, my elbows resting on my knees. "Don't insult me, Allison. We've been together for 4 years. I know when you're lying, so I'm going to ask you again. What really happened in Miami?" Her bottom lip quivered, and she looked away. For a moment, I thought she wasn't going to answer, but then she exhaled shakily. "There was a guy," she admitted. "His name was Brandon. One of the girls met him at the pool, and he had friends with him. They invited us to a party at their suite." I clenched my fists, the anger simmering just beneath the surface. "And you thought that was a good idea? To party with random guys 2 weeks before our wedding?" "I didn't plan for anything to happen," she said defensively. "We were just having fun. I wasn't thinking." Clearly. My voice dripped with sarcasm. "So, when did just a kiss happen at the party?" She hesitated, and I knew the answer before she even spoke. "It wasn't just one kiss." My stomach twisted. "How far did it go, Allison?" She wiped her eyes, her breath hitching. We made out at the party. I was drunk and I didn't stop it when I should have. But that's all it was. I swear." I leaned back against the couch, running a hand down my face. "You really expect me to believe that? You've already lied to me once. How do I know you're not lying now?" "I'm not," she cried, her voice desperate. "I know it sounds bad, but I didn't sleep with him. I couldn't do that to you." I laughed bitterly. "But you could do everything else, huh?" Tears streamed down her face, and she covered her mouth with her hand, trying to stifle a sob. I should have felt something, sympathy maybe, but all I felt was numb. "You've destroyed us, Allison," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you understand that? You didn't just hurt me. You killed everything we built together. I didn't mean to, she choked out. I love you, Jake. Please don't do this. We can fix this. I shook my head, laughing without humor. Fix this? How do you suggest we do that? Pretend it never happened? Go through with the wedding and hope I forget about the fact that you cheated on me days before we were supposed to say I do? It wasn't cheating, she yelled suddenly, her voice filled with desperation. It was a mistake, a stupid, meaningless mistake. I stood up, unable to sit there any longer. Call it whatever you want, but to me it's betrayal. You betrayed my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get that back. She stood too, closing the distance between us. Jake, please, don't throw this away. We can go to therapy. We can work through this. I'll do whatever it takes. I looked into her eyes, searching for the woman I fell in love with. But all I saw was someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had lied to me, who had broken the promises we made to each other. I thought you were different, I said, my voice hollow. I thought you were the one person who'd never hurt me like this. She sobbed harder, clutching at my arm. Don't leave me, Jake. Please. I pulled away from her grasp. I need time to think. I can't make this decision right now. She nodded, tears still streaming down her face. Okay, just promise me you'll at least consider forgiving me. I didn't answer. I walked to the door, opened it, and stepped outside. The cool morning air hit me like a slap to the face, but it wasn't enough to clear my head. I got in my car and drove aimlessly, the roads blurring together as I replayed her confession over and over in my mind. How was I supposed to marry someone who could betray me so easily? How was I supposed to trust her again when every time I looked at her, I'd see that picture of her kissing another man? My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. It was my mother. I hesitated before picking it up. Jake, she said softly. Can you come over? Your dad and I want to talk to you. I sighed. I didn't want to face them, but I knew I had to. I'll be there soon. I pulled into my parents' driveway half an hour later. My mom was waiting on the porch, her face etched with concern. She wrapped me in a hug as soon as I stepped out of the car. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Inside, my dad was sitting in his favorite armchair, a cup of coffee in his hands. He gestured for me to sit on the couch, and I did, sinking into the cushions like the weight of the world was pressing down on me. We heard about what happened last night, my dad said, his tone serious. Megan's post is all over social media. Of course it was. Megan never could keep anything private. I don't know what to do, I admitted, my voice cracking. How do I forgive something like this? My mom placed a hand on mine. Sometimes love means forgiveness, Jake. People make mistakes. You and Allison have been through so much together. Don't throw it all away because of one bad decision. One bad decision? I laughed bitterly. She cheated on me. That's not a mistake, Mom. That's a choice. My dad nodded solemnly. I get it, I really do. But you need to ask yourself if this is something you can move past. If you can, then work it out. If you can't, you know what you have to do. I rubbed my temples, the pressure in my skull building. I don't know if I can ever trust her again. Then that's your answer, my dad said gently. I sat there, in silence, the weight of their words sinking in. I had a choice to make, a choice that would change the course of my life forever. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't face the apartment, the wedding decorations piled up in the living room, the framed photos of us hanging on the walls, like a mockery of what we once had. Instead, I booked a cheap motel on the edge of town, the kind where the sheets smell faintly of bleach and the air conditioner hums louder than your thoughts. But even that wasn't enough to drown out the chaos in my head. I laid awake on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling and replaying my parents' words over and over. Sometimes love means forgiveness. If you can't trust her again, you know what you have to do. By morning, I'd made my decision. The wedding was tomorrow, and there was no more time to hide from the truth. I drove back to our apartment just after sunrise. Allison was waiting. For me, sitting on the couch with her knees pulled up to her chest, looking as fragile as I felt. When she saw me walk in, her eyes lit up with a mix of hope and fear. "You came back," she whispered. I didn't respond. I set my keys on the counter and sat down across from her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was suffocating. Finally, she broke it. "Did you think about what I said?" "I thought about everything," I replied, my voice calm, but distant. "And I can't do this, Allison. I can't marry you." Her face crumpled like paper. "Jake, no, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can take some time. Anything you want. Just don't give up on us." "I'm not giving up on us," I said, my throat tightening. "You did that the moment you kissed him." She covered her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. I hated seeing her like this, but I couldn't let her tears change my mind. I'd spent the entire night wrestling with the idea of forgiveness, trying to convince myself that love could outweigh betrayal. But the truth was, I couldn't live like that, constantly wondering if she'd do it again, constantly doubting every time she went out without me. "Allison," I said gently, "I'm not doing this to hurt you. But if we get married, it won't be because we're happy. It'll be because I forced myself to ignore what you did. And that's no way to start a marriage." "But I love you," she cried. "I love you so much. Doesn't that mean anything?" Swallowed hard. "It did. But love isn't enough when the trust is gone." Her sobs grew louder, and I felt like the worst person in the world. But deep down, I knew this was the right thing to do. Staying would have destroyed us both in the long run. After a while, she wiped her tears and looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. "So that's it? 4 years, and you're just walking away?" I nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." The silence that followed was unbearable. I stood up and grabbed the engagement ring off the coffee table where she'd placed it last night. For a moment, I just stared at it, the weight of everything we'd planned crashing down on me. The venue, the vows, the honeymoon tickets, all of it gone in an instant. I set the ring down beside her. "You can keep it or sell it. I don't care. I just need to move on." She didn't say anything as I walked to the door, but just as I was about to leave, she called out to me. "Jake, wait." I turned around, hoping for, I don't know what. Closure, maybe. Or an apology that would finally give me peace. Instead, she said, "You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm sorry I ruined it." I felt my chest tighten, but I forced myself to stay composed. "I know you are, but sometimes sorry isn't enough." And with that, I left. I drove aimlessly for hours, the reality of what had just happened sinking deeper with each mile. The wedding was supposed to be tomorrow, and instead I was spending my day figuring out how to cancel everything. The first call I made was to the wedding planner. She was sympathetic, promising to handle the vendors and notify the guests. The second call was to the venue, and they were surprisingly understanding, even offering a partial refund. The hardest call was to my parents. My mom answered on the first ring. "Jake?" "It's off," I said, my voice flat. "The wedding's off. Oh, honey," she sighed. "I'm so sorry." "I'm fine," I lied. "I just need to be alone for a bit." "Are you sure? You can come stay with us?" "I'm sure." I hung up before she could convince me otherwise. The next call was to my best man, Jake. He'd been my rock through college, and I knew he wouldn't judge me. "Dude," he said when he picked up, "I heard what happened. Are you okay?" "No," I admitted. "But I will be." "Do you need me to come over? We can drink, play some Call of Duty, whatever you want." I almost said yes, but I knew it wouldn't help. "I think I just need some time, but thanks." "You know where to find me." After hanging up, I parked my car at the edge of the local park, the one Allison and I used to visit when we needed to clear our heads. I got out and sat on one of the benches, watching the ducks glide across the pond. It was peaceful here, a sharp contrast to the storm raging inside me. I thought about all the what-ifs. What if I'd never proposed? What if she'd never gone to Miami? What if I'd ignored my gut and gone through with the wedding? Would we have been happy? Or would this betrayal have eaten away at me until I couldn't take it anymore? I pulled. out my phone and scrolled through the photos of us. There was one from the day I proposed, her smile brighter than the sunset behind her. Another from our first vacation together, her arms wrapped around me as we posed on the beach. We looked so happy, so in love. But those moments weren't real anymore. They were just memories, and memories couldn't fix what was broken. I deleted the photos one by one, my finger hovering over the screen for a moment before finally hitting delete all. It felt like ripping off a bandage, quick, painful, but necessary. As the sun began to set, I realized I hadn't eaten all day. My stomach growled, but food was the last thing on my mind. I knew that this emptiness wasn't going away anytime soon, but I also knew that eventually I'd heal. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, but someday. My phone buzzed again, another message from Allison. I didn't open it. Instead, I blocked her number. I couldn't keep reliving the pain, hoping for closure that would never come. As I drove back to the motel, I thought about what my dad had said. If you can't trust her again, you know what you have to do. I'd done it. I'd walked away. And even though it hurt like hell, I knew deep down that I'd made the right choice. Love is supposed to be built on trust. Without it, it's just an illusion, beautiful on the outside, but hollow on the inside. And I wasn't willing to live a life built on lies. Tomorrow there would be no wedding, no vows, no promises of forever, just me, starting over, alone but free.